So it's no mystery. A lot of people think that Overwatch is in a pretty bad spot right now, and I'm one to agree with them. Kiriko has been meta for a while, and so has Sojourn. So I figured instead of playing the game more and uploading gameplay, I want to react to a popular video that someone sent me. But they really wanted me to see what the reaction was. So this is a completely blind watch, and I'm excited to show that with you guys. But before we do, I have to thank the sponsor for today's video, which is Alienware. I've been using their products for probably about 2 or 3 months now, and honestly, I've been absolutely loving them. If you're looking for a gaming PC just to get started, I know a lot of you guys are. Their laptops are a great start for anyone that might be just switching from console to PC, or maybe he's just getting started with gaming in the first time. But if you're really hardcore, I cannot recommend enough their 360 hertz gaming monitor that I've been using. This thing is a godsend. So if you're looking for some more products with maybe some of that extra Christmas money you have, just go down in the description, look at their website, peruse a little bit, and honestly, you can't go wrong with some of their products. Now, let's get right into the video. All right, so before we hop right into it, I just want to give credit. This is Viveros. I probably messed that up. 3.04K subscribers at the recording of this video with 188,000 views. So, hey, maybe subscribe, maybe check this out. This is not my video. I'm reacting to this. I'm very interested to see this, though, because I haven't seen this yet, and I'm on Overwatch YouTube. So I'm interested to see these takes because, I mean, 12K, this is good stuff. So, again, I'll put the link to this in the description. But without further ado, let's watch this.
It is not a hot take to argue that Blizzard's balance team is bad at their job. They make incoherent decisions on a pretty consistent basis, they refuse to address major problems even when the community is in pretty near consensus over them, and they take way too long to implement new balance changes, although hopefully that's changing soon. The rare times that this game has been in a state of relatively good health, such as the initial launch of Overwatch 2 in my opinion, are very much so the exception rather than the rule, and I think a big part of that is that Blizzard does not understand this concept of survivorship bias. This became especially obvious to me after a Twitter interaction that Alec Dawson, the lead hero designer on Overwatch 2, had with a player who said, regarding Mercy, it was mentioned that she was way high up there in high ranks. How is this determined? From my experience, the only players playing Mercy at higher ranks are those that specialize her. Anyone else would choose any other support than Mercy. Alec's response was, we look at win rate, then see if there's a significant enough dataset for the hero in that rank range, pick rate, and then try to dig into the details of a match itself. Would love to touch on data more in the future. In the highest ranks, Mercy is top 3 in win rate and pick rate.
Nah, man, nah. That's insane to me. I mean, to be quite honest, I'm not quite sure what they mean by survivorship bias, but I'm sure that that's exactly what we're going to go into next. But I don't know, the whole thing with win rates and that's how you balance a game, it's got to be deeper than that. That's like a symptom of a problem. And you have to look at what the problem is and not what the symptoms are if you want to actually like fix that problem. So, I mean, that's step one. But let's see what survivorship is. Survivorship bias is. I'm sure that they define that. Wouldn't have gotten so many views.
And this made me want to talk about survivorship bias because It's clear that Blizzard genuinely doesn't understand the concept, and it is making the game worse. I also think the player base suffers from this issue to some extent too, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
That's me. I suffer from that.
With, let's define the term. What is survivorship bias? It's actually a pretty straightforward concept in data analysis, best demonstrated with an example. It's the idea that when evaluating data from a given situation, you are always going to be biased towards survivors, even though the data from anyone who did not survive, either metaphorically or literally, is essential for coming to usable conclusions. The classic example is from World War II, where a statistician named Abraham Wald was part of a team analyzing how to make Allied bombers more survivable. They were able to examine the damage on planes that had successfully returned to base, and with that information, did something that seemed counterintuitive. Instead of suggesting reinforcing the areas of the bombers which had sustained damage, they wanted to reinforce the areas that had consistently taken little to no damage. Why? Because, even though the data would seem to indicate that the damaged areas were the areas in need of reinforcement, the reality was the opposite. It proved that bombers taking damage in those areas were still able to safely return to base. But, if no planes that successfully returned had taken damage in other areas, you could logically conclude that it's because being shot in those areas would result in fatal damage, meaning that that's where you want to install reinforcements. This is a really important concept in data analysis, and given that Blizzard openly prioritizes raw data over anything else when determining balance decisions, it's especially important that they factor it into their decision making, and they obviously don't. Next, let's move on to what survivorship...
Okay, I just want to think, I'm not sure if I got this right. I understand where they're coming from. So before I say anything, I think what they're saying is like, they reinforce stuff that isn't the main thing that you're supposed to be thinking about reinforcing. They're reinforcing based on data that doesn't matter. They're looking at the data the wrong way, essentially, is what I think he's trying to get, or sorry, they are trying to get at. I don't want to assume. I think that's the idea of survivorship bias. And I can see that in Blizzard's decisions, specifically like, oh, this is what players are struggling with. And like they're just assuming that the problem is the win rate. Well, maybe Mercy is very strong because of other characters that are strong. Sojourn. We are talking about Sojourn, guys. Yeah, that's probably the main problem here. So I think that's what they're getting at, and that's exactly what the problem is with the Overwatch balance team. So this is actually a really good video so far, and for having so little subscribers and not having really an audience, this is really good. So hats off to Viveros.
Bias actually looks like in Overwatch.
Yeah, let's see this.
In the Overwatch context, let's look at the comment that Alec made again. Mercy is top 3 in pick rate and win rate at the highest ranks. There's an element to this that's going unstated. Who's filling the 2 top spots? Alec implies in the replies that this is specifically talking about supports, not the entire roster, so it's a safe bet to assume that the top 2 for pick rate are Kiriko and Lucio, 2 heroes who have just dominated Season 1 meta of Overwatch 2. Survivorship bias is actually, perhaps unintentionally, being invoked in SkyC's original tweet. From my experience, the only people playing Mercy at higher ranks are those that specialize her. Anyone else would choose any other support than Mercy. The argument is that when it comes to any off-meta hero, the only people who will play that hero still will be specialists who are doing a risk-reward analysis and determining that even though, say, Kiriko and Lucio are the meta heroes who bring the highest baseline potential to their team, their skill with Mercy is high enough that it's the better decision. This is in contrast to the actual meta heroes, who are going to tend to be played by most people. That's because they're the meta, which means that they're going to be played by people with a wider, more general skill range. After all, if you're a support player who's a jack of all trades but a master of none, you're more likely to play the meta, because even though you bring roughly equivalent value regardless of which support you're playing, that higher baseline for the meta heroes makes them just a more attractive option. Far more people in Overwatch are generalists to some extent than outright specialists, in part because it's really hard to get so good with a hero that it justifies picking them over heroes who on paper just have more to offer. Not only will it be primarily specialists playing off meta, but pretty good ones. In Season 1, you had to be real good at Mercy to play at higher ranks and still get more value than you would have out of either Kiriko or Lucio. Because of this, only the best of the best Mercies will still be playing her at high ranks, and therefore she's going to have a disproportionately high win rate, compared to heroes who are either 1, on meta, since they're being played by everybody and therefore are going to have a more averaged out win rate, or 2, heroes where the skill ceiling is too low for a specialist to be able to compensate for how much more value they could get out of other heroes. The survivor...
I do want to just stop real quick. I do agree with what they're saying in terms of like the win rates and things. I don't think just because the specialists are playing Mercy and she's off meta that she's going to have a higher win rate. That is completely determined on just like how that season is going. But that doesn't really discredit the point. The point is that because less players are playing that character, if they are just winning more collectively at that high rank, that character is going to have a higher win rate. That doesn't mean the character is better. It just means that ladder is an absolute circus. Like it is just never going to be coordinated enough that the meta is always going to be winning those games. So it could be very, very high, but that win rate could also be extremely low. And that could be any problem. And it's really just like who's playing that character at a specific time. Mercy is not a very popular pick in Overwatch 1. And the only people that are playing her, and at least from my experience, were like the people that had a duo Sojourn, and then the Sojourn was just carrying. There's a lot more variables in that, but I do agree with the general point. I just wanted to add a little bit something there.
Survivorship bias in this scenario comes from Alec failing to recognize that there are a huge amount of people who are never picking Mercy because she wasn't in a good place in the game.
Absolutely.
That's only looking at people who are picking her, which is only looking at the best of the best Mercies at any given skill rank. This isn't an accurate representation of where Mercy is in the game. This isn't seeing how the average player is able to use her. This is automatically filtering for only the best Mercies, only the people who are willing to stick with her through her being weak. And
you know, that's weird to me because all of the time, I feel like Blizzard has stated that their general design philosophy is not to balance around high-level players, it's to balance for the general player base. So it's weird that when they use data, they're like, oh, well, Mercy's winning a lot in GM, we got to fix something. I wish it was a little bit more consistent in the way that they balance. And I wish I could understand the way that they're balancing and really see how they're doing it, because I think that's a big problem that I have with it, is that it's just not consistent. Like, I wish it would be consistent all of the time. If you're going to if you're only going to balance for the casual player base, like balance for the casual player base. And like, you know what? That's fine. At least I understand the philosophy you're going for, and I can try to like aid my content in order to help that better. But quite frankly, I think we're all lost. That's why this is a good video.
It's especially true because he's only talking about the highest skill ranks,
Yeah.
which is just doubling up on the survivorship bias
Exactly.
because you're looking at the best of the best people with this hero playing at the best of the best ranks. You are only looking at people who have succeeded under the current meta, not anyone who has failed. And we tend to see this kind of thing manifest in disproportionately strong nerfs against heroes like Genji or Sombra in Season 1, who were not the meta and were not actually big issues with Season 1's gameplay. And this
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Genji was in meta before anyone starts hunting this person down. I mean, like, Genji was meta in team play for a little bit. Sombra wasn't meta. She was okay. Like, she could be played. But they weren't the reason the meta was the meta. I mean, Sojourn, guys. Sojourn. Kiriko.
is also where the community's survivorship bias comes in. Yes, Sombra could be pretty strong in the first half of Season 1, but really only in the hands of people who specialized her, at least to some extent.
Yeah, to some extent.
Sombras
That's
were
right.
truly useless before the nerfs, and were often only picked because people erroneously thought she was easier than she was. As you got into higher ranks, those bad
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Sombra in Overwatch 1 was that she was meta. She was meta, but the problem is that she was very hard to pull off. So it was a good meta. It was like only the best players can make her meta better than every other character in coordinated environments because you had to be good with them. So that's like one of those moments where it's like, do you really need to change Sombra? I mean, like you could if you're going to try to balance for the casual player base, but you got to stay consistent, you know? And it's just not consistent.
Sombra specialists got filtered out, and you were only left with the people who were genuinely good with her, which made her look really strong whenever she was played, and gave the community the impression she was overpowered. This lined up with Blizzard's
She was
data
never
about
overpowered.
pick
She
rates
might have been
and
a little
win
bit
rates,
overtuned.
which again failed to account for all the people who didn't play her because she's a challenging hero who's hard to get real utility out of, and so they nerfed her. Now she's pretty useless. And some of you,
Yeah, she is pretty terrible. And this isn't just, I know that they're a Sombra player. I mean, their logo is Sombra, so they're obviously a Sombra player. Like, the thing is, the rework made Sombra strong. She was a bit overtuned. What they did to Sombra was completely kill the character because supports didn't know what to do against her. And you know what? I'll say it. I'm a support YouTuber. I don't think Sombra was a problem. I think we were the problem. I think we've been coddled by Brigitte for like 3 years now. We just needed to get better at the game and get more consistent at dealing with Sombras with better position, like just positioning better. I think that's what really should have happened. And I was really excited because I'm like, wow, I can really help these people. But then they just nerf Sombra and support's easy again because they have Kiriko. So this is most definitely like 100% the points you are making are good. I 100% agree with them. And it's a very analytical approach to actually these problems, which is very good because I think analytics and having logic is the only way you'll get through to people. So this is very good.
You on Twitter, I see you on Reddit, and I see you on YouTube, are still cheering on those nerfs even as you cry about the consequences that have been reaped.
They're not good nerfs.
This is where we get into the third section of this video, the consequences of ignoring survivorship bias.
Yep. Let's see it.
As of time of recording, the dominant tanks in the meta are Roadhog and Doomfist. Ramattra seems to be kind of finding his place, depending on who you ask. The pros kind of have their own strats with him, whatever. We're talking about like average normal players.
He's mid.
Doomfist got some pretty major buffs coming into Season 2. Roadhog really hasn't gotten a balance change since Overwatch 2 launched, at least not to him. So how do we explain him going from being treated as like a borderline throw pick to being the main meta tank? A pretty big part of that answer is those Sombra nerfs for both tanks. Sombra has always
I don't know if it's Sombra. I think that's a bit much. The main reason why Hog is good is because Sojourn is so hard meta that people found that with other of the slight tweaks with the balance patch that came in with Overwatch 2, that Winston would just get rolled by Roadhog, and then that's that. Like, Roadhog's just better than Winston because Winston was trying to jump on your Sojourn. If you just go Hog and stop the jump onto the Sojourn, you then win that differential because Sojourn can have more time to do whatever she wants. People were getting more consistent with Sojourn. And then the other side of that was, well, now Doomfist can do that a little bit, but it's still so hard in ladder because people aren't coordinated and people would rather just play Roadhog. Because I don't think Roadhog is generally the meta. I don't think so. I think characters like Sigma are strong. I think characters like Orisa are strong. I don't think characters like Roadhog are really all that strong. I think it's just that it's easy to pull off. Did Sombra maybe exploit those weaknesses in ranked? I could see that. Should she be able to do that? I'm not quite sure. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into Sombra. I didn't really care for it. It's ladder, like whatever. To say that Sombra is the reason why those characters are meta, that's a little bit of a hot take. I think because Doomfist isn't even all that strong right now, because Doomfist at least like requires some coordination. I can understand the hacking the Doomfist might be a little bit more of a Sombra counter than Hog getting countered by Sombra. I think the big problem is that Kiriko exists, Sojourn exists, and Hog also gets picks. And you're not going to be able to dive a Sojourn in ranked because no one's going to follow up with you on Tracer because they're going to be everyone's going to be specializing in Sojourn. It's a player-based issue just as much as it is maybe that Sombra balancing issue. Here's the thing. I still think Sombra should have gotten maybe tweaked a little bit because at lower elos, maybe she was doing a lot more than we realized. But maybe this is the exact point. Like, maybe she wasn't. I don't have the data. I'm not a Blizzard employee. I'm not looking on Overbuff every day. Maybe Sombra really wasn't doing that well in Plat, and she was only doing well in GM. And maybe that's exactly what Survivor bias is. This is. Like, maybe that's exactly the problem. I mean, in my view, in the high ranks, I think she needed a little bit of a tweak. But as much nerfs as she did, yeah, no, that was absolutely absurd. I think it was way too much. But this is still, like, very valid.
Always been good at holding down both Hog and Doomfist. They are obviously very reliant on their abilities in terms of their survivability, and Sombra was a solid counter to that. Doomfist wasn't.
I don't think Sombra should have countered Hog as hard as she may have in the past. Doom especially. Hog, I think the Hog problem is more of a Kiriko and Sojourn problem, and that's my opinion. But I mean, Sombra maybe could alleviate some of that pressure in ranked. Whether that should have been meta or not, I don't know. But this is still valid.
Wasn't meta in Season 1 because he wasn't very strong, but one reason why Hog wasn't was that a Roadhog running into a pre-nerf Sombra alongside a Reaper or a Sojourn was not going to have a fun time. The existence...
That's true. There's also, like, Kiriko wasn't really available in Season 1 for so long, so you can't just, like, Suzu it away. But that might be valid. I mean, I haven't played a lot of Sombra.
Of a Sombra on the field meant that Roadhog players could still survive and thrive, but only good ones. It's like how the existence of a Widowmaker on the field
that's actually real.
As far as swap off, and the ones who succeed in spite of Widow are going to be the ones who know how to play their angles, keep themselves safe, and work with their team to undermine the advantage that Widow naturally has over a Pharah. On top of that, you might look at...
I mean, that's real. I also have to understand, I'm playing at, like, the highest ranks where I'm playing with top 500s and top 50s contenders players. Like, these players are not just going to get dumped on by a Sombra. This is a very general... I have to remember that. So, yeah, that's valid.
Ana, another hero who isn't really doing great in the current meta. She's theoretically a solid support choice against a Roadhog, but whoops, Kiriko's in the meta, and she can remove the sleep darts and anti-healing that an Ana would use to punish a Roadhog who is too aggressive. So that won't work. Reaper is good against Hog, but it's still definitely possible for a Roadhog to win a duel with a Reaper. Certainly easier than, like, for a Winston to win that duel, especially now that Mercy is starting to become more essential to the meta in order to damage boost the still meta Sojourn, who needs Mercy for her right
now it comes together.
Kill on 200 HP targets. And don't forget, most CC abilities have been removed from the rest of the non-tank roster, with Sombra and Ana both pretty non-viable in the face of nerfs and the impact of more meta heroes. Is there a solution to Roadhog meta? People are complaining right now that supports in Season 2 are punching bags to the game, and they're
tradition. No, that was a good transition. Sorry, I'm a nerd.
It's not fun to play them. Almost like we've nerfed every hero who could punish a Doomfist or a Roadhog who barges into the backline into non-viability. And I will say, on a personal level, it is particularly galling as a Sombra main to watch my hero get nerfed completely out of viability, and then see so many of the same people who demanded those nerfs crying about Hog and Doom. I called this in the video I made about it. You are reaping what you have sowed. If Sombra hadn't been nerfed, she would still be an option to keep this game's balance in check. If Ana had been buffed in recognition of the power vacuum that was being left for Hog and Doom to step into, we could have avoided this.
Okay, as an Ana player, I do not think buffing Ana is ever the solution. Maybe it is a little bit. Maybe she needs a little bit of a buff. I haven't played the new buffs, but we've still seen that Kiriko is still the defining factor. I think I think switching other supports is the first thing. Everything you've said about Sombra, I agree with. Ana, I'm not so sure if this is the thing. If I buff anti-nade, it's still gonna get Suzu'd. The problem is that, like, I mean, you could buff it, but then I don't think Ana needs it. I think Kiriko needs a nerf more than Ana needs a buff. I think the Ana buffs were nice. It's a little bit of a quality of life boost, but it's never going to really... without her being completely overpowered, you're not going to be able to beat Kiriko, because Kiriko is Kiriko. I think Kiriko is the main problem. I said that a lot of times. I'm being redundant. I'm sorry for everyone watching this long. Let's keep going, though.
Was willing to do what's actually necessary and implement some real goddamn nerfs to Sojourn, the meta might not have become what it is. But again, survivorship bias. The only people who are still playing Ana are the best Anas at their skill rank. Of course, the data would reflect that she's got a decent win rate and performance if you exclude all the people who wouldn't dare to play her because you need to be really good for her not to be a throw pick over Lucio or Kiriko. The only people
that's 100% true. The only people playing Ana are the ones that understand the differential that you need to have against a Kiriko. Like, you can't just throw anti-nade without her just forcing Suzu. Like, if you're going to throw anti-nade, you have to make sure that it's big enough that it forces her to use Suzu. Because if you use nade and your team can't follow up on it and she still has Suzu, you just lost. And most people do not have the patience or understand that that is how you need to play Ana in this meta. She can still be very good when paired with a Kiriko, but it's still extremely hard to run. And I don't know anyone that's playing Ana in ladder. It's actually good with Ana. And isn't just playing it in games that you can just carry harder than you could with like Lucio, because you know you can beat the Kiriko. So again, it's like, yeah, the best players are playing on it because they understand the value she has, but it's extremely hard to get away with it, and it's never going to happen in the highest level of play.
Sombra and seeing real success were the people who were
Yeah.
good with her. And it is baffling to me that half a decade after this game initially came out, we are still arguing about whether or not it's acceptable for people who are high skilled to get high value out of a hero when they've put in the time to be good with them. I feel like I'm losing my mind that this is still a debate that we're having. The only people playing Mercy in Season 1 were the people who were good with her. Ana and Mercy are not in a good place right now, even though Mercy is starting to enter the meta because she needs to pocket Sojourn. And remember, just because a hero is meta does not mean that they are fun for the people who are playing them. I was there for Moth meta. I was usually the Moth, never again.
Yeah.
This collection of decisions of, nerfing Sombra, refusing to accommodate with some sort of a buff to Ana or a nerf to Kiriko, anything to make this meta seem less stacked in favor of building up Roadhog and Doomfist to the positions that they're at, comes down to a failure to recognize and account for survivorship bias. And it's why the game is not only worse now than it was 2 months ago, it's why the game is only going to continue getting worse. Balance is not just something that can be determined by raw data, especially if you refuse to actually do real data analysis. You can't just look at raw data. That's not how you come to reasonable conclusions. Data has to be interpreted. And when Blizzard refuses to account for survivorship bias, it makes the data unusable for the purposes of making this game balanced and fun. And I don't understand how they're this bad at this. This game is not new. Anyways, that's going to be it for now. Thank you so much for watching. And
please do subscribe to Viveros. I'm probably messing that up, but please do subscribe. Check them out. This is a fantastic video, and it's exactly what I said at the start. You can look at data, but if you do not analyze that data and really understand what it is that it's telling you, you are going to make bad decisions. And that's exactly what this is. I think a data analyst would be great at this. It's like, you can reject the null, but what does rejecting the null really mean? If you don't know what that means, then that data is still useless to you. What was the original hypothesis that you're testing? Stuff like just something as simple as rejecting the null, which I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this probably have no clue what I'm talking about. And it's like, yeah, this stuff is important. When you look at data, it's data. It's not information. It's not telling you anything. When I look at Overwatch, I'm like, oh, wow, Ana has a 60% win rate. She must be the best. Well, there's a lot of confounding variables that we're not considering right now. And that's exactly what Viveros is trying to get across to us. It's 100% true. It's Overwatch is in a pretty rough state because we nerfed characters that were not the problem. They were symptoms of a problem. And that's always what Mercy is. So the whole thing with Mercy being high skilled players, I still think Mercy would need a rework. But the way that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to say, nerfing Mercy? Huh? What? Huh? Why? Huh? And that's the whole point. It's like, well, why would you need to nerf Mercy when everyone that's playing the game every day, that's playing at a high elo, they understand that Mercy's not really the problem. It's Sojourn that gets a lot of value out of Mercy, because now Mercy makes up for the fact that she lost that one shot. It makes the break point more favorable for Sojourn. So now she gets to one shot and she has better primary fire damage. Yeah, no. We have to think about this stuff. We have to think about this. We need data analysts that look at these things. But here's the thing. I am not a Blizzard employee, thankfully, after everything that has been going through Blizzard recently in the past year. Thankfully, I am not in their shoes. I feel for the Overwatch team because they are good people from what I know. From what I know, from the information I have seen, they are good people. And I want this game to succeed. And I do not know the pressures that are pushing these people forward. I do not know the pressures that they have to deal with, who's managing them at this point still. I don't know what the ideologies behind that management are, if it's literally just for money, or if it is for just making the game good like it used to be. I don't know what pressures they have. So it's unfair for me to be like, wow, you guys suck at your job, because I don't know that pressure. The thing that I wish the Blizzard team could do for us, and I think would solve this problem, is if they were truly transparent with what their ideology was behind balance. Because quite frankly, to me, it feels like there's a limbo between the team. I feel like some of the teams like, nah, we need to make sure that this game is appealing to casuals so that more casual players want to play the game, and then we can make more money off microtransactions because more players are playing the game. They probably don't have skins. They want to have skins because they really like the game. Bam. Okay, that's profitable. There's another side that's like, no, we want this game to be competitive. We want to make sure we're really just making this the best balanced game it could possibly be. And that could be a little bit of a turnoff for completely new players, but it would really help milk out the player base that is already existent. And those two ideologies, those are fine ideologies. I'm not sure exactly what's the better one to go with. You'd have to do some market research, which costs a lot of money. And it seems like they don't have analysts to really do anything with that market research. But the thing is, for me, is if you don't want to do that market research, I just hope that you pick one of them and really run with it, because that would make this game better. If you're trying to make it more casual, that's fine. But you got to make it more casual and make it more fun to just kind of play with friends, you know? And I think transparency would really fix this problem of survivorship bias, because it kind of seems like they're just in a limbo. They're like, oh, Mercy too strong at high ranks, got to make it down. And then with Sojourn, it's the opposite. It's, well, Sojourn's really strong in high ranks, but she's not so good in low ranks, so we're going to keep her. Like, how does that make sense? You're going to balance Mercy because she's strong in high ranks, but you're not going to balance Sojourn because she's strong in high ranks? That makes no sense to me. The data does not make sense. So, overall, again, very good video from Viveros. I feel for the Overwatch team. I really hope that they can just, like, get their stuff straight. I'm sure that they have a lot of pressure on them, and it doesn't help having more pressure on them from people just, shooting their mouths off. In any way that I can help this team, I hope that I can. And I have ideas. And maybe I'll make a video about those ideas of like how we can fix the game. But quite frankly, that's not my job right now. I don't want to put more pressure on them, and I don't think we should be either. I think we should just be like, hey, this is a problem. Can you guys just be more transparent? That's all it needs to be. But yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. If you've watched me just scream at a screen for 26 minutes, maybe you should consider subscribing, and also subscribe to Viveros. I've said it a million times. I really mean it. This dude makes good content. This was very, very, very good for the size of YouTuber that they are. So guess what I'm doing? I'm subscribing right now. I'm liking the video. That was fantastic. But yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. But until next time, I've got to peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.